Why are some baseball players more successful at the game than others? The answer can change depending on which player we're talking about. We sabermetric wizards love to find new ways of calculating a player's value and then looking for secret little variables to explain where that value comes from. But of course, numbers are only squiggles on a page, and at the end of the day, it still takes 18 athletes with physical skills most of us can only dream of having to realize an actual MLB game. Baseball pitchers in particular are trained to execute some of the most complex, highly specialized motions in professional sports. Learning to throw and command a host of entirely distinct pitches requires years of effort, sacrifice, and often surgery. This is why, generally, young pitchers are exempt from having to learn how to hit, because their throwing skills are what attract major league suitors. It is this raw, physiologically demanding ability to throw several different pitches consistently enough to fool hitters and get the ball across the plate that makes pitchers special. The mastery of spin, the desperate hunt for velocity, the painstaking mental and muscular control required to change speeds between different pitches. In slang terms, we call a pitcher's repertoire of pitches their stuff. We assess that stuff by measuring the speed, spin rate, and movement patterns of every pitch. Leaving aside the boring mechanics of how all these things are measured, which we covered in a previous video, today we're going to examine every qualified pitcher in the major leagues to determine who has the right stuff, the best stuff, the gnarliest arsenal that makes you spill your drink when you watch on TV and makes hitters snap their bats in frustration. This means we're not prioritizing a pitcher's craftiness, their experience, or even their counting stats. We're just deciding which pitcher's repertoire is the most devastating, regardless of how many Cy Youngs they've won. There may, as you can expect, be a slight bias toward younger pitchers with high upside in this list, but one thing we promise is that we don't care at all about pure miles per hour, because we are nothing if not discerning and sophisticated. Okay, yes, fair enough, we do care about miles per hour. We care about it so much. I myself have a personal goal of throwing 100 miles an hour someday, but I am 150 pounds, and very Swedish. These pitchers, ranked in order, are the ones I judge to have the best pure stuff in the MLB. Number 9. Shane McClanahan. We've talked about Big Shane's big 12-6 curveball before, but that's only one weapon in the bag for the Tampa Bay Southpaw. McClanahan also wields a devastating changeup that picked up a major league best 44.6 whiff rate in 2022. Nearly half of the swings against this pitch touched nothing but air. McClanahan counters his changeup with a blistering fastball that averages 97 mph, best in the game among left-handed starters. To balance out these elite pitches, McClanahan contributes a high velo slider that had the third best whiff rate of any lefty slider last season. Number 8. Edwin Diaz. Diaz sprints in from the bullpen to the tune of Narco by Timmy Trumpet, and immediately yanks absolute gas at the poor, quivering hitters that have to stand in the box against him. Diaz hurls a four-seamer that averages 99.1 miles an hour and tops out at 102, picking up a ludicrous 41% whiff rate. Tops in the majors on fastballs. The fastball isn't even Diaz's best pitch. His slider topped all hurlers who threw at least 100 of them with a 55.7 whiff rate. Diaz's hard, sharp-breaking slider breaks beautifully off of his heat-seeking missile of a fastball. The combination of these two unhittable pitches explains why Diaz struck out a major league best 17.1 batters per 9 innings last season. Number 7. Spencer Strider. Strider is pretty green as young aces come, with only 134 innings in the show under his massive belt. But Quadzilla is set up for years upon years of dominance with his outstanding 3-pitch mix of four-seam, slider, and changeup. Strider lands in the 97th percentile in fastball velocity, meaning he throws plain harder than just about anyone. His heater picked up a run value of -20 last season, 12th best of any individual pitch in the major leagues, and well ahead of fastballs from guys like Max Scherzer, Luis Castillo, and Julio Urias. Strider boasts excellent vertical movement on his fastball at 1.9 inches above average, a tribute to his ability to backspin the ball so it looks like it just won't drop. His slider is marvelous as well. Although not as hard as the slide pieces thrown by McClanahan or Diaz, Spence gets more than 3 feet of horizontal movement on it with a whiff rate of 52%, third best in the bigs beyond a couple of big guys named Diaz and DeGrom. Number 6. Zach Gallen. The young Arizona right-hander impressed last season en route to a 5th place finish in the NL Cy Young voting. His arsenal includes a 4-seam fastball, solid changeup, knuckle curve, and a reliable cutter. You might be underwhelmed by the radar gun readings for his fastball, which average a commonplace 94.1 miles per hour, but Gallen uses his heater to good effect by spinning it like a dervish, causing the pitch to appear to rise toward hitters in the box and making it very difficult to square up. Gallen doesn't need to rely overmuch on his fastball thanks to his wonderful knuckle curve, which was more or less impossible to touch last season. Hitters achieved only a .279 slugging percentage against the pitch, and Gallen's -13 run value on his hook bested all other big league curveballs. Number 5. Jacob deGrom. DeGrom is one of those rare pitchers who reshapes the baseball paradigm all by himself, whose powers are so overwhelming to hitters that the rules of the game need to be changed in order to control him. DeGrom's right arm is a machine, pumping a steady factory output of fastballs and sliders off the pitcher's mound. Almost no one throws a slider as hard as DeGrom, and the pitch is lethal against both righties and lefties. Early in his career, DeGrom relied more on this changeup and curve, which are little used these days but still nasty when they make an appearance. Nothing matches DeGrom's famous fastball, however. The pitch has been the hardest heat available among starters for 3 years running, with batters hitting a mere 157 against the pitch a year ago. DeGrom's put-away percentage of 38 on his fastball was by far the best of any heater over the past 2 seasons, even though they were marred by a string of injuries. Number 4. Yu Darvish. Famed party animal and seduction master Yu Darvish is known as much for his pitching as he is for his extravagant lifestyle. The word excessive is not in Yu's vocabulary, as the Japanese righty continues to invent new pitches seemingly every season, en route to developing the widest individual arsenal in the major leagues. Depending on who you ask, Darvish throws something like 8 different pitches, including all 3 types of fastball, a slider, a splitter, a changeup, and 2 different kinds of curveball. At age 36, Darvish relies on this full complement of pitches to confuse hitters and pitch his way deep into games. Darvish's slider is arguably his most effective pitch, riding elite horizontal movement and top-shelf spin rate to a -14 run value that ranked 4th among starters last season. His four-seam fastball generated a .225 weighted on-base average against in 2022, 3rd best among starters. Darvish's pitch mix is so well developed, so he can rely on any one of his weapons at essentially any time, although generally he works from a devastating cutter, slider, four-seam trio that makes him one of the most dynamic and fascinating pitchers in baseball. Number 3. Max Fried. It's southpaw heaven when Fried comes to town. Who doesn't love watching Mustache Max throw baseballs? Unlike most of the guys preceding him on this list, Fried has a full 5-pitch mix that he interchanges pretty regularly. In a typical Fried start, you'll probably see the Braves ace throw all 5 of his pitches at least once. And why wouldn't he? Each one is a work of art in and of itself. The lefty throws a mid-90s sinker, a hard four-seamer, a huge sweeping boomerang curveball, a tight slider, and a fun little changeup for right-handers. Every one of Max's individual pitches registered a negative run value last season. Together his offerings compiled a remarkable -37 runs. His curveball is a special animal, registering a bare 19% hard hit rate against last season, with +4 inches of vertical movement above average, dropping in total over 5 feet vertically on its trip to home plate. Fried's chase rate landed in the 90th percentile last season, which bodes well for those of you planning to put him on your fantasy teams. Number 2. Sandy Alcantara. Only the 2nd Cy Young recipient on this list, Sandy Alcantara is a modern marvel and a brilliant rosin tosser with a seemingly inexhaustible arm. I'm going to have to call him out as my personal favorite pitcher on this list, even though, like Max Fried, he's not always a strikeout machine. I like Alcantara so much because of his blistering sinkers and unique low 90s changeup. 20 years ago, you would not have found anyone who throws the ball like the Marlins ace throws it today. He had the 2nd highest sinker velocity among starters last season and the 4th highest slider velocity. On top of this, Alcantara had the best changeup in the major leagues last season, with its -25 run value the 3rd best of any pitch in baseball. Averaging around 91 miles an hour, Alcantara's changeup dives away from left-handed hitters and in on righties, generating weak contact and swings and misses. Hitters slugged just .197 against Sandy's changeup last year as he twirled his way to his first Cy Young award. Before I show you my highly controversial number 1 pick, here are some dudes who deserve an honorable mention. And believe me, it was very tough to leave them off this list. Justin Verlander, Emmanuel Clase, Hunter Green, Carlos Rodon, Corbin Burns, Shane Bieber, Alek Manoah, Aaron Nola. Number 1. Shohei Ohtani. Who else did you expect to see here? Ohtani is the phenom of phenoms, the long-awaited messiah, the alpha and the omega, the man in the high castle. We knew he was good when he got here in 2018. Now it seems like there is virtually nothing this man can't accomplish. Every season, Ohtani seems to add a new pitch when he gets bored of throwing all his other ones. In 2021, he started throwing a cutter out of nowhere that boosted his ground ball rate and contributed to a lower whip. Last season, he took things a step further by introducing a hard, diving sinker that touched 100 miles an hour with superb movement. This, along with a more frequently deployed curveball, gave Shohei a steady 6-pitch repertoire that racked up a cumulative -34 run value last season over 166 innings. Last season, Shohei's bread and butter was a disgusting slider that the righty threw 39% of the time, picking up a 30% put-away percentage and a .159 opponent's batting average. This, combined with Ohtani's trademark low 90s splitter, gave the Phenom 2 outstanding strikeout pitches that work against both lefties and righties. Pitching is only half of Ohtani's game, which makes it all the more inconceivable that Shohei's stuff is this gnarly and this consistent. Just take a look at these swings and misses. How does anyone ever score a run off this guy? Well, we all know Ohtani is a beast. What do you think of the rest of this list? Should I belong in baseball jail for leaving Corbin Burnes out of the top 9? Let us know in the comments below.